The New Orleans Pelicans started the season 1-12 in their first 13 games. They were also 3-16 in their first 19 games and absolutely bringing up the rear in the Western Conference. And they've ended the year playing their way into the NBA playoffs, getting that 8 seed, putting on a great show in the first round against the best team in the NBA and being 2 wins away from pulling off one of the biggest upsets we've seen in NBA history. And ultimately this didn't happen and the Pelicans have been eliminated. But there are so many positives to take out of this season for the Pelicans organization, and their fans finally have something to be excited about. They did this, they made a Cinderella run, their rookies played incredible, their young core looks great, they made the 8 seed, and they did this all without their star franchise player in Zion Williamson, who was out the whole year with injury. And I'm going to explain today why I think the New Orleans Pelicans have an extremely bright future and why they could have some significant improvements going into next season. So let's get into the analysis. Let's take a look at how the Pelicans were actually playing as an overall team on the court towards the end of the season, pretty much in the last 2.5 months. They really turned things around. It really started in February. This is when their team really started to come together and get some chemistry and really start to perform on both ends of the floor. And in February, they had a winning record. It was a great month for them. They were 7-4 in the month with the 7th best offensive rating in the NBA and the 9th best defensive rating, which is extremely impressive for a team, again, who literally started the season 1-12. Then in March, this carried over. They were 8-7, another winning record in this month, which again, for a Pelicans team is very impressive. And they had both the 10th best offensive rating and the 10th best defensive rating in this month. They were able to carry this momentum into April just a little bit, but then absolutely showed up in those play-in games. They defeated the San Antonio Spurs quite easily, and they also defeated the LA Clippers in that game to play their way into the 8th seed in the NBA playoffs. And then, as we know, against the Phoenix Suns, they put on an absolute show this round. Devin Booker was injured. We knew this was going to make the series closer, and it absolutely did. It was amazing to see Chris Paul go head-to-head against Jose Alvarado, who is giving him such a tough time. And I'm going to talk about those 3 main rookies who really showed up for the Pelicans this season as well, a little bit later on in the video, a little bit more in depth. But overall, they really put up a great fight, and the Pelicans made some great changes to their team this year to show that they're really starting that rebuild. They're starting to become a winning franchise, and they're ready to make the playoffs for a few years to come in a row, and in general, they're just ready to win as a team and perform on both ends of the floor. As NBA fans that have slandered the Pelicans for a couple of years now for not being able to get their team together, we really have to give credit to their front office. And despite everything and the controversies that were going on with Zion Williamson this year, the Pelicans team made 4 main huge transactions this year that really helped improve their team. First, before the season, signing a veteran big man in Jonas Valanciunas, who especially early in the year was arguably their best player. He did a great job of really being that big man presence, that traditional big man that is able to get you close to 15 and 15 every night, be a great force on the inside, clean up the offensive glass, get a lot of rebounds consistently every night, and be a good rim protector on defense. He also expanded his game and is definitely shooting some more threes now, scoring on his own and in the post a little bit more, and he was an amazing addition for this team and will continue to provide a lot of great things for them going into their future. And the other things that they did in the offseason was get, in my opinion, the biggest steal of the NBA draft in Herb Jones. This guy was drafted with a 35th overall pick in this year's draft, and he is so good defensively that he could literally be on the all-defensive second team this year as a rookie, which is just absolutely insane. His defensive presence is incredible. He can guard multiple positions. He just gets in the head of opposing teams' best players and is just an incredible individual and team on-ball defender, off-ball defender. He's just good at everything defensively, pretty much. Good rim protector. And then he does his job on offense too, provides about 10 points per game on pretty efficient numbers. So he was an incredible role player for the Pelicans this year and is going to continue to be one of the best defenders in the NBA and an absolute defensive force for this Pelicans team, which is really what they needed. And then as the season goes on, the Pelicans make another very underrated signing in Jose Alvarado, who's 24 years old and declared for the draft last season and went undrafted. And this dude comes in and he's another absolute defensive pest. This is a guy who's become pretty much famous now for his little sneaky move where he sneaks up behind the point guard on the other team, bringing the ball up the court and gets those sneaky little cheap steals. But at the same time, he's an incredible defender. He was picking up Chris Paul full court all series and just tried so hard. He just puts in so much effort on the defensive end of the floor and is an incredible perimeter defender. And again, that's what the Pelicans need, that energy defensively. He provided that for the team as well. Props to the Pels for going out and getting such an underrated player like Alvarado. He also provided some pretty good minutes at the backup point guard position. Offensively is a decent playmaker and passer, so another great acquisition there. And then of course the big one, the one that really signified that the Pelicans are ready to win now, because they went out and made a big trade, a blockbuster trade to get CJ McCollum at the deadline this year. And ever since CJ has been traded to the Pelicans, he's been going off, especially because his whole career he's been a second option to Damian Lillard, and technically he might still be a second option to Brandon Ingram on this Pelicans team, but he's turned into at least more of a first option and has been absolutely scoring the lights out. He's just been absolutely insane. Ever since he went to the Pelicans this year, he's been averaging over 24 points per game, shooting over 49% from the field and over 39% from three, and has been a pretty good playmaker and does a good job running their offense at times as well. So he was an incredible addition for this team. The Pelicans did have to give up some of their future, but it was definitely worth it to get that co-star in CJ McCollum. The Pelicans, especially offensively, are looking like a very dynamic team right now, and only imagine what that's going to look like next year when Zion Williamson gets back on the floor. Yes, I know there's been questions about his health and is he going to be ready to come back and is he 300 pounds, but listen, I think a lot of you guys forget just how good Zion is. This is a top 15 player in the NBA when he's fully healthy, if I'm being honest. If you guys have watched my channel for a while, you know how high I am on Zion, but for good reason. He could be the most paint dominant player that we have right now in the NBA. And in 2021, he became the first player in NBA history to average 27 points per game on over 60% shooting from the field. That's just absolutely incredible. Add him into that offense. Now look at how dynamic they are. We saw CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram running the offense for the most of this season and pretty much all of that second half of the season. But imagine if Zion comes back and all of a sudden players like Ingram and CJ become more secondary players, and they're maybe now able to control the ball a lot and potentially run some pick and rolls with Zion, which could be a deadly duo. But at the same time, Zion can control the ball when he's driving towards the rim now. Imagine how much more spacing he's going to have on this team. Imagine how much easier that's going to make it for him to operate. And imagine if he's able to become a better playmaker like he was towards the end of 2021, how lethal that's going to be with deadly shooters like CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram and many more great shooters and role players on this team on the perimeter. I think that could be a very good looking offense, and like I said, they have different options now in one-on-one situations and isolation situations late in games. They can go to Ingram in the post, they can go to Zion down low, they can go to CJ to try to create his own shot or create a shot for someone else and be the great playmaker and scorer that he's always been. And really this team just has a great big three now, and Zion, Ingram, and CJ McCollum, who all when they're at their best are top 20 to top 30 players in this league in my opinion. That's an amazing big three surrounded by a great supporting cast, and we're looking at a deadly offense for this New Orleans Pelicans team going into next season. And that's not even the biggest thing for me with this Pelicans team and their future, it's their defense. This has always been quite a poor defensive team, and that's really been their main problem, and all of a sudden now they're looking like one of the better defensive teams in the NBA, especially towards the end of this season, and have brought in two rookies that I've already talked about that have been incredible on the defensive side of the floor and bring tons of energy and momentum lifting to this team in Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones. I've talked about how amazing of a perimeter defender and pesty steal type of guy that Alvarado can be, the incredible all-defensive type of talent that Herb Jones is. Combine that with the defensive anger in Jonas Valanciunas, who proved he can be quite a good defender this year, and all of a sudden you've got some decent wing defenders like Ingram, his length comes into play sometimes. Zion's not a great defender, but if he can develop into kind of a rim protector type of guy, use that size to his advantage, be a decent post defender, that could be good for this team as well. And we saw throughout, especially the second half of this year, how this team's chemistry defensively came into play well as well. Their rotations are better, their communication's better, and their overall energy just took a big boost this year defensively, adding Herb Jones and Alvarado to the team. And these guys have just provided so much. I can't talk enough about these two players right here, what they've provided for this team as rookies. Another rookie like Trey Murphy III, I think he could be good next year. Not exactly maybe defensively for this team, but again as another kind of sharpshooter and floor spacer, especially when they have Zion on the floor. And overall on both ends of the floor, this team is just looking so much better, and especially defensively so much more energetic. And especially towards the end of the season, what we saw was very convincing from this Pelicans team. The fight they put up against the best team in the league in the Phoenix Suns was very convincing in the playoffs. And once this team adds Zion back, I think they could be a true force. I'm going to go out and make the prediction right now that the New Orleans Pelicans will be the Memphis Grizzlies of next season. The Grizzlies were a team who last season, led by Ja Morant, were a little bit of an underrated team, had a great young core, but were just fighting to get that 8 seed, played their way into the play-in tournament, or played their way out of the play-in tournament into the NBA playoffs, and then got smoked in the first round by the Utah Jazz. And we look at a team like the Pelicans, they played their way into the playoffs this year, lost to the Phoenix Suns, and this year the Grizzlies jumped all the way up just because of internal improvements with their team, all the way to the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And I'm not saying the Pelicans are going to be the 2 seed in the West next year, but I think they could be a top 3 to 5 team in the Western Conference just because of their internal improvements and how great of a young core they have that I think is going to absolutely explode next season. So there you have it. That's the end of today's video. Those are my thoughts and my analysis on the Pelicans and their great underrated young core that could absolutely explode next season. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you're new, be sure to subscribe and comment down below your thoughts on the New Orleans Pelicans and their great young core, and I'll see you all next video.